Hey, today we're talking about should you canter your gaited horse? Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, I have talked about this a lot. This is a very commonly brought up topic, and so I want to talk about it again. Actually, it's so common, in fact, I usually do a video about it every single year. And the videos are slightly different, and I've gotten better and have more techniques, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions that come up about training your gaited horse to canter. And I want to see if I can clarify some things, and I do want to specify that this is a technique that I propose, and there are exceptions to the rule. There are other ways to train it. However, this also works really well for non-gaited horses. This method of getting a really nice canter transition can help any horse, whether they're a quarter horse or Arabian, thoroughbred, any breed at all, a pony. And I've had a lot of success. We use this at clinics, and then I also have people giving me feedback about this that have tried it at home. But before I get started, I have a new product that I just released today, and so I just want to share with you guys, and then we'll get into talking more about the canter. So this will be really brief. So I did some watercolor paintings about horses a few months ago and was asked if I would do note cards. So here I finally did produce them right here. So I gotta get it so you can see. So we have this one, which is what I call the water horse. And we have this one, the fire horse. The colors aren't showing up really well because it's pretty washed out. And then we have the galaxy horse here, which is really cool and doesn't do it justice exactly. But so these are note cards like this, and the back it just says Ivy's watercolors on the back. And the set there's 3 designs, and it's a set of 9 blank note cards for $23.99, and the link is in the description. You can support me by buying those or not. You don't feel like you have to. I'll mention them again at the end. Cantering. Let's just start at the beginning. Should you canter your gaited horse? Well, I believe God made gaited horses to be able to canter. And that's awesome because a lot of us do like cantering our horses. However, a lot of gaited horses are not balanced. Short answer is I believe you should canter your gaited horse, but there are some exceptions. And when I say exceptions, I don't really mean exceptions like you shouldn't canter, more like there are ways to do it correctly. A lot of us like our gaited horses to gait well, and we also like them to have a variety of speed, to gait slowly and to gait fast. Now again, there are people that don't want to gait fast, but I like having a horse that can gait fast and canter. If you always ask for the canter from a fast gait, say, to keep up with the other horses, then your horse will tend to be lazier about that fast gait, and instead of just gaiting, will keep trying to canter. This is a big reason, but not the only reason, for my one rule with cantering gaited horses is that unless you're showing, which most people don't have to canter, but unless you're showing, you only ask for the canter from the walk or from the trot, not the gait. And that's a super, super important rule, and it's kind of the biggest one. But I'm going to show you how you get your horse to canter, and we're going to talk about why that's so important to only ask from the walk or the trot. A lot of gaited horses are not balanced. One of the questions that came up was not only how do I get it to canter, but also how do I get my gaited horse to canter in nice circles, not just like on a straight line, like on the trail. And it's a good question. So many gaited horses are just simply not balanced. They haven't been taught to bend through their body. They haven't been taught to move their shoulders. And a lot of times they're very tight. A lot of times it's because very little importance is put on teaching the horses to steer well and use their body well. And so the more you work with their body and teach them to balance themselves, the better off they gait and do everything else. Which is just kind of a fact. That's what happens. If you work at it, they will get better. A lot of times, and I have seen it, when people tell me that they try to ask their horse to canter, and this can actually happen, a couple things happen, and it can happen with any horse, not just gaited horses. They'll ask their horse to speed up, and maybe their horse gaits, maybe he doesn't, and they go faster, faster, faster. The horse throws in some pace, some trot steps, some gaiting steps before finally falling into a canter. But by that point, the rider is already off balance from riding that very awkward movement. The horse is now rushing and not doing a nice slow canter, but is just going faster and faster. With trotting horses, it's a little bit easier, and they'll sometimes just trot faster and faster and faster, and sometimes break into a canter and sometimes not. But again, that trot is throwing the rider off balance. And so by the time the horse gets into the canter, if at all, the rider is off balance, throwing the horse off balance. The horse is already off balance. And it's a mess. I've seen it. I have personally ridden it, and I hate it. I don't even want to deal with it. So we can totally skip that step. What we do, instead of asking for the horse just to go faster and faster and hope they fall into the canter, what we do instead is we actually ask them to go into a canter from the walk over a ground pole or a small jump. Now, once I figured this out, it revolutionized how I trained, and once people learned about it, so many people were like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Let's go back to balance. Pacey horses are very, very rarely balanced at all. They're very stiff through their back, and most gaited horses will do kind of a pacey canter or a pacey lope or whatever you want to call it. It's very pacey or what we call lateral. You'll watch that the two legs, it's a 4-beat instead of 3-beat. So in most horses that do a correct canter, the canter is 3 beats or lope. I'm going to use those words interchangeably. The canter is 3 beats. It would be, if they're on the right lead, the right hand lead, it would be left hind, front left, and rear and right hind landing together, and then front right. And it would be the opposite if they were cantering on the left lead. 3 beats. When horses get pacey, they tend to, their legs get a little discombobulated and they land with all 4. And so it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 time rather than a correct even time 4. 3-beat instead of a correct 3-beat. I'm sitting in front of an open window and it's messing with my concentration. Sorry. So when we have our horses that are pacey, they will tend to have a worse canter. It's one reason why, if you want a good, square, correct canter, I encourage you to do more trot work. Train your horse to trot on command, as well as gait. That's not taking the place of the gait or negating the fact that you want a nice, smooth gait. Along with that, that will help when you have really pacey horses, but it'll also help their gait, not just the canter. And I have a video on how to train your horse to trot, and you can check that out. The videos I'm going to show you today, which we're going to get into in just a minute, some of them include my bad riding, and I'm going to point out my riding where it's bad and tell you not to do what I'm doing, but I don't actually have a lot of good examples on video. I've done this many, many times in clinics, but they don't always get videoed, hence why we don't have great examples. I'm going to be working to get some better ones this summer, but I don't have any right now. I had hoped to get some last summer, but last summer didn't really train very much, so don't have any. I'm going to play this first video here, which some of you may have seen because it's already on my page. And this first video is about 6 minutes long. Once that's done, I have some brand new footage that you haven't seen that I want to show you about how I worked with some horses to get longer strides of canter, to get more balanced canter, both using the trot steps, using a pole and a jump. And I'm going to kind of give you, it's going to give you an overview. So if you have any questions, go ahead and comment, and we're going to take a look at this first video.
Good try. So she tried to go around it. She didn't refuse, but since it wasn't a really good try, what we're going to do, let's do it again. We go back to a walk. Walk is calm. Walk is always good. Oh, I should set up a little bit better than that. There we go. Good. There you go. Well, See why I don't do a lot of hunter jumper. So basically she tried to stop and then she jumped over it. No problem, just not very pretty. She is kind of overweight and out of shape, and so it's not like that high, but for her to think to go over it, she's like, eh, not sure about that. Well, that was a little bit of a good gait there, but I want her to canter. No problem, go back to a walk. Cantering, we want to have lots of patience for. You want to have your horse calm. If your horse is nervous and rushing, don't work on canter. See how calm this mare is? Totally fine to work on canter. Look up. Good, better, good girl. So for that, she gets to stop and praise. Good girl, good girl, good. Good girl, nicely done. Now I keep my reins short enough that I can control the horse's turning so that they go over the jump, but then I give them a loose rein. Look at that, sunflower out in the field. It's like squirrel. Good, and she's walking calmly. That's what you want. You want canter, walk, canter, walk, canter, walk. Because you don't want to, I don't believe in canter, canter, canter until they're strong enough. So pushing them to go farther is usually just a way to get them, you know, kind of upset. Later on, we can, once they're good, you can canter farther. Good. Good girl. And whoa. So kind of a lopsided canter, but she did it nicely. It's not super bumpy. It's not rushing. She slows down really easily. Actually, I had to push her to keep going that time. Well done. Well done. And again, she's being ridden in a snaffle, the Rockiness raised snaffle. Very responsive to that. I'll probably take her on a trail ride next week, just because this weekend is busy. Because she's so calm about this whole canter thing, I'll do it a few more times. As soon as your horse gets riled up or hyper, stop. Just do it the next day. That's counter canter with a good gait at the end. So, yeah, we're gonna do it again. She's got a bad jump. Again, she doesn't seem super athletic, so asking her to jump is a little bit like, ugh. But it's not a bad jump. And she goes right over it. Good girl. The important thing for me to do is remember to look up, because that helps set the horse up. So I'm looking up at those gates. That was a better canter. Good girl. Good girl. That was beautiful. Part of it was me setting her up right. That was beautiful. Beautiful. So something that I need to work on, but I'll tell you about. So if you don't have a horn, see, English saddle, no horn, or you have a Western saddle with no horn, you want to make sure that when you go to canter over, put your hands here, lean forward, and put your hands on the horse. It'll help keep you from like bouncing on their back, and it'll help let the horse go and make sure you're not pulling on the reins, because you don't want to sit back, which can sometimes be a cue for the horse to stop. So lean forward, get your balance, lean forward. And the reins are still right there for you to pull back if you need to. Good job, that was beautiful. And so what we want her to learn is that's exactly how we want her to canter every time. Good girl. All right, so here we go, try again. So I'm gonna try to be looking up at those gates up there. Put my hands here. Yes. Yes. Yes, good girl. That was a beautiful canter. Good. Good girl. Look at that. Beautiful job. Beautiful. Well done. And because that was so good, we're going to stop right there. That was excellent. Okay. Okay. Lovely. Yes, that was a beautiful canter. It felt great. Earlier canters felt choppy. That one, I finally got myself together, and she just did a nice canter. And no grass. Good girl. Good girl. She's going to remember that, especially because I hopped off there. Here you go. Well done. That's a great thing to end the lesson on. I like doing cantering near the end of a lesson if possible, so that when they do well, just like that, you can hop off and say, we're done.
Okay, so there you got to see the basic introduction, and you can see that. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions, and then I'll show you more footage of other horses. Pamela says, love cantering, excited for this video. I need help on teaching leads. We'll get to that. If I forget, go ahead and say something. Chrissy says she breaks the rule that she asks for the canter from the gate. Oh, hey, I am not your judge, Chrissy. I have specific reasons why I teach that, but it can be broken. Denise says hi. Treva says hi. Diana says hi. Cindy says, my Tennessee walking horse Mare has never trotted. If she doesn't do the running walk, which, again, I'm skeptical that it's a running walk, so you have to send me a video if you want me to believe that you have a horse that does a running walk, then, or the pace, or the gait where both legs on the same side go together, which is a pace. How do I teach her to trot? She gaits well when I pick up the reins. So very simple, teach the trot. I'll try to put a link in the description. The video, you basically use some poles, 2 poles on the ground, and teach the trot. It's very simple, and you just give a separate cue. Abby says, thanks for the helpful video. Trying to teach my gelding to canter. Now he tends to go fast-paced like you described, so these tips will be helpful. Yep, keep watching. We're going to give you some examples of the actual training. Nan says, the pole technique, walk straight to canter, work like magic for Jack. Yes, Nan and her horse Jack were in a clinic. Well, it wasn't a clinic. It was a demo I did in Pennsylvania 2 years ago. It was just 2 years ago. And we had 3 horses who'd never really cantered before. And in just a 1-hour session, we had all 3 of them cantering either right over a pole or without the pole. It was amazing. Patrice, who's going to be part of the clinic this weekend in Virginia, says she hopes to get canter, hopefully. Crystal says her mare started cantering with this technique. Awesome. She does tend to crossfire. Is there anything in particular to do about it? Well, question. In the pasture, does she tend to crossfire a lot too? Like I have some horses that do, because you have to look at physical issues. It could be saddle fit. It could be the hooves. It could be their body. It could just be that she's not strong enough with the rider. And so you want to do a lot of trot exercises, lateral work, and really don't push for long periods of canter. Work at getting 3 or 4 actual good strides of canter and stop her. Don't keep going. Just ask for a few really good ones and then go ahead and stop and get that transition where she's lifting her body up and doing a correct transition into a correct canter, but don't ask her to hold it. That works really well. You can also possibly put a few poles out, which you're going to see more of in a minute. Janet says, what if you have a taller horse and you're afraid of jumping your horse over a raised pole for fear of falling off? It's a very legitimate fear to wonder, can you actually do that jump? I love riding controlled canter. Not exactly a youngster. I think a lot of people that watch this video are going to relate, Janet, and it's a good question. If you're afraid of the jump, try over just a 1 ground pole on the ground, so low down. You're going to walk, and here's the tricky part. When you ask for the canter, you need to ask for the canter. You can't sort of ask for the canter, and you can't kind of ask for a gait. You have to be cantering. You have to go. And you can't like dilly-dally about it. That transition has to happen over the pole. If you're too early, is better than being too late. If you're too late, your horse is going to walk over the pole or maybe just gait. You want that pole to be a signal for the horse to lift that front end and get you that jump. We talked about how a lot of gaited horses aren't balanced, and one of the reasons that we use a pole or a jump is because that gets them to lift that front end, which is usually weaker in gaited horses, and so it gets them to lift it and gets them into a good transition. April says endurance riders do canter gaited horses. Yeah, lots of people canter their gaited horses. Again, this video isn't to condemn anybody who doesn't, but for those that have questions about should you, can you, how do you, this is what this video is for. Amanda says hi from Canada. Hey. And April says, try my horse yoga on my YouTube channel to keep them limber. Well, okay. April, I know you have commented before. Please do not just push your website without offering me something to try, okay? This video is not a place for you to promote your products. All right, great. Make your own videos, April. Actually, do that. Go ahead and make your own videos, and if they're any good, I will share them. Janet says, thank you, Ivy. Good. I hope that helps. And we're going to see some examples of that and some examples of how not to do it in just a sec. And Mary says, hi from Fort Worth. Linda says, cantering is key for versatility with Tennessee walking horses. Absolutely. It's good for any horse. Another question I get asked is, when should you canter young horses? I canter them as soon as I would a quarter horse. Again, young meaning they should be 4 years old. Hopefully you're not riding them at 2. But I canter them just about as soon as I ask them to gait or trot. Okay, let's jump into more videos. This next horse, this video is a short clip, and you're going to see this horse go over just a low pole on the ground. I can't remember, I think, and you're going to see a pretty nice transition. That's exactly what you want to see, just like that, a nice, slow, relaxed transition. This horse had a little trouble slowing down, which you're going to see. And I think in just a sec, what you're going to see is I'm going to ask him to canter without the pole, and look at how pacey he is. And it's a bad transition, it's very bumpy and uncomfortable, versus if we watch the beginning, you see I'm walking, super important, walking, getting that head down, and then right at the pole, I ask for that little hop and transition, and he does a really, really nice canter. And we're going to see a few times of this, and I'm going to point out when my riding's bad, and I wish I had better footage of me riding to share with you guys, but I don't. So let's jump into the next horse. This is a Tennessee walking horse mare. And this is from 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago. I did not have my technique as refined at this point. Here's just trying to canter. It's very pacey. It's very choppy. She has some weakness in the hind end. She's not trying to buck, and she's just uncomfortable. And there's a series of clips. This is from day 1 at a clinic. So you're going to see the progress over the days. Now, with this mare, we worked a lot on softness and head down, because once she put her head down, she started gaiting really, really nicely. When she had her head up, she would get a little pacey, and she was a great example, because as soon as her head dropped, she had this beautiful gait. And she also hadn't been ridden a lot recently, so there was some weakness. So that was a nice little transition, but you see she's kind of trying to crossfire. She might have some SI injuries. That's with the sacroiliac joint in the top of the hip, which I talked about if you watched the video at the beginning of the week on, is it bad attitude or is it pain? She tends to be pacier. She could have some body issues that need to be fixed. She's also a little bit weak, but she also couldn't hold the gait very long. Like, she could only hold it for a few strides before she got pacey or started crossfiring. So that was day 1, and I wanted you guys to see an example of like what she looked like at the beginning. So here is day 2, and there's some more footage here. So here we set up a series of canter poles, about 10 to 12 feet apart. Now this is going to depend based on your horse. This is the first time asking them to canter over them, and you can see she was swerving around. Expect that. Now, these days, I don't suggest that you start with this many. I suggest you start with 2. So keep that in mind. This was while I was still perfecting my technique. She also does better on her right lead and has a hard time picking up the left lead. Just ignore that and just watch the video for seeing the progress that we were able to make, and ignore the bad moments. This is, again, like I said, from 3 years ago. Now I recommend to start with 1 pole or 2. And if you have your horse that needs more, you can add a few more, but start with the transition up. So here I started getting her just to do more of a trot, and then she had some nice transitions here. See, that's a little bit of a nice canter, but she couldn't hold it, and she'd fall down. So instead of letting her get weaker and weaker, I slowed her down so I could walk and then come over by the people and stop and praise. Your goal is to get a few strides of canter, and then your goal is to stop and praise. It doesn't matter if the horse wants to keep going. Your job is to stop her after a couple strides. As they get stronger, you can add more and more strides in. So there was a much better transition. These poles probably need to be a little bit farther apart. Not a bad canter. Notice I'm trying to ask her for head down, but I'm trying to not pull on her mouth. Another important point, and then right there she gets pacey and kind of loses it. So I slow down right away. So as the horse, if your horse falls out of it, gets pacey, slows down, it messes up the canter. Slow down right away and either restart if it wasn't a good effort, or stop and praise and let them know they did a good job. Initially, when you first ask for this, your goal is just to ask for 1 or 2 strides. Now, going the other direction, we have more trouble as she has a very difficult time picking up the left lead. Now, this is most likely a physical issue for this mare. And so if you have physical issues, try to address them first. Build that trot. So she can't even get into the canter on that one, and she was rushing. Again, it's why I don't use so many poles. It gives them more opportunities to kind of fall down. So this is day 2. And again, I'm just repeating this. This is not how I do it now. She was kind of walking fast, so take some time. If your horse starts to rush over the poles, just walk over them. Go back to the walk, take a break, no big deal. Ideally, if there's an easier side, work on that for a few days and then start asking for the hard side. Leads are tricky and involves the rider as much as the horse. A lot of riders, now she went into the canter well, but to the wrong lead, and then she's pretty pacey. Kind of rough. You can see her swishing her tail as she's uncomfortable. Now, the leads have to do with the rider almost as much as they have to do with the horse, because if you're not correctly using your body to ask for the correct lead, you're going to struggle. Okay, so that was day 2. We're going to go ahead and look at day 3. This is a short clip just to see the progress. So day 3, we've been working a lot on head down. I'm letting her kind of just go over them. I didn't ask for the canter. And then right at the end, I'm going to ask for that canter transition. And look at that much more square canter. She's still short striding a little bit, but those first few strides were really, really nice. And she could hold it slower and longer. That's the thing, is a lot of times what we really want is a slow canter. But you can't often ask for a slow canter at the beginning. You have to have energy to get that transition. All right. Nan says, I get a lovely canter going up a little hill. Seems to force him to stay in control and do a nice rocking horse canter. So you can do it up a hill. I'm not in favor of that because I want them to do it anywhere I ask, not just up a hill, but there's nothing wrong with that. Sherry says, hello again from Whitecourt, Alberta, Canada. Hey, Sherry. Cindy says, we canter uphill on the trail. She does really well. I haven't done it on the pasture before. I usually just work on gait. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with just cantering on the trail. I'm not here to tell you you're doing it wrong if you have a canter. This is especially for those that are struggling. Linda says, in our pasture, there is varied terrain. I use a little strip of steeper slope to get them started in the canter. Is that similar to the pole technique or not a food practice? I'm not sure what word she meant for that. I don't like uphill other than like the very first time or two I canter gaited horses because I canter on the flat. I mean, in Illinois, I had hills that I could ride on, but a lot of people don't have hills. If you're in Florida, if you live where it's flat, or parts of Texas, you don't have the option to use a hill, and it doesn't help you get a good balanced canter. The hill is kind of a cheat. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but if you want a canter in the arena or you want a good canter on the flat, you want to actually spend time training, like I talk about. If your horse is already doing the canter you want, you can ignore me. Not a problem. If you're trying to advance or get the canter or you want to do more shows, you need to have that canter under control, and that means training it so the horse understands. Amanda says, my horse is much better counterclockwise. Should I do more work on that side before working on the weaker side? I always start on the stronger side on a cue, and then do a lot of leg yields and lateral work at the walk and the gait, and do some trot. Try to get her body stronger and more even, and then you can start asking for that offside, but don't ask for as much on the harder side. All right, here we go. This is another mare, Brooke. I love this horse. She is a Tennessee walking horse. I loved riding her. We're going to see some bad riding on my part, and you're going to see what happens if you don't ride. If you ride in a saddle with a horn, you must put your hand on the horn as you go over the jump, because you never know when this is going to happen. And this is just me asking her to canter for the very first time, I think. Whoa, hang on. So this is me asking her to canter for the very first time, and you can see it's very pacey. I'm going to replay that beginning part. So this is the first time I ask her to canter, and this is what it often looks like if you ask without a jump. She has a stride of canter, and then she just like starts pacing, and it feels awful, just terrible. And so then I'll go back and show you what I did to train her. And this is why you can start with a smaller jump, but this is why you must put your hand on the horn. Yep. Yeah, how do you guys like that? It's very uncomfortable. Always put your hand on the horn. If you don't have a horn, you're fine. So she jumped it, but she like flipped her back hand over it and didn't do a very good job. So this next time I take it a little bit slower with her. And then we go to actually using ground poles. Now, with her, I ended up using 2 poles to get her to trot, and it works okay, but as I go back and watch it, I don't think it was the best way. So always go to a walk and then ask. So here she did a much smaller jump, and I was much, much happier with that one. All right, so this video is a few minutes long. Here, I'll show you the jump again. Honestly, I should have lowered it. Good, but I wanted to get that transition. And so one thing, you're going to see me pulling on her a little bit. Part of that is because she's a very well-trained mare, but when you add the canter, she starts to get really, really strong. And so what I ended up, I don't want them to keep cantering. Now that was much better, but she pops that back end. And not a lot of horses do that. What she does, where she like pops her hind end up to make sure she clears it, not a lot of horses do that. I've rarely encountered that. So usually with her, I probably would lower that pole. And so the goal with her was really to get some canter, and which is why I keep getting at it. So that was almost a canter. And then you see how pacey she gets? And that's why you want to get a stride or two and then stop and praise, which I finally do here because she did a good job. I edited this together quickly yesterday, and it still took a couple hours to edit this. So here's a couple poles, and I asked her to trot, which she can do, and then there's another pole right there, and look at that nice transition there. So the reason I showed you this is I'm not thrilled with how I did this, but getting a horse to trot is so helpful for getting a good canter. So when I ask her to trot, and then I ask her to go over that canter, she can do a much better transition. So trot. And if I had more room, I would ask for a canter sooner rather than going around on the circle here. And then already a little bit better of a canter. But I don't ask her to hold it because she physically is not able to hold it yet. And then slow down to a walk. And so ideally what I would do next time is have those trot poles, and then in a straight line, about 20 feet in front, 10, 20 feet, I have another pole. And after I get the trot, I would again go ahead and ask for the canter. So trot, and then at the next pole, I would ask for a canter. And this is one way that if you're a little bit uncomfortable, you get the trot steps, and then right there you could ask for canter, which I don't have a pole there, so my pole's over here. And so she jumped it nicely. So even with just a pole on the ground, she did it nicely. Some horses will not pick their feet up, and you must use a small jump, okay? It just depends on the horse and the comfort level of the rider. Stay safe, of course. The goal is always to come back to a stop and stand and a walk, because that is our goal with the horse, is to have that calmness. So here, some of the pressure you see on my reins is I'm asking her to soften and drop her head. And here I ask for the canter, and there she doesn't give it very well. So I slow down right away, and then I do it again. And that's what I wanted you to see. Slow down, I'm asking her to drop her head. There's the trot. She can do that very well. And that's why I would like to have the pole a little bit sooner, because she kind of catches her off guard by taking her on the circle. So I'm telling you, I would go back and do this differently. This mare is very well gaited, and just she's allowed to kind of put her head up a little bit. And then see, she got really pacey there. So because she's pacing, I did not ask her to canter. If your horse is pacing, don't ask for the canter, please. By all that you hold dear, don't ask for the canter. It's just going to set them up to fail. And always go to the walk. This mare is probably a little bit keyed up. And the other thing I need to tell you is usually I do this at the end of a session, and I do 5 minutes. I keep it very short and very, very positive. So the length of time that I'm working on this, I would not normally do. There she has a nice trot. She kind of loses her balance on the circle, but she can pick up a nice canter over that pole right there. Again, you can't hardly see the pole, but it's right in front of the camera. My mistake for even putting it there. But she did a really, really nice job. It's good canter transition. And I'm trying to be very gentle with my reins, but she's not wanting to stop. So please forgive that. I definitely prefer not to do that. which is why I hesitated to show this video, but it's a good example of a way to work on it. Okay, so that's probably, I'll see this, trot, trot. Nice little trot that she's maintaining. I'm trying to post to keep her in the trot. She has a hard time turning. And she went into a nice canter on the right lead. It was very nice, a little bit rushy, but I'm going to stop her right away and praise. Okay, so there's day 1 of training her to canter, and I want to show you her. It just so much improves. All right, I'll show you the second one before I answer the questions. Here is the second day with the same mare. This is day 2, working on the canter. We got our poles, a little bit of trot. It's a better trot. She's a little bit calmer today. And look at that transition. Look at that canter. She can also hold it just a few more strides than before. It's not perfect, but it is so much better. So much better. And I wanted you guys to see that. A lot of times, what you want to not do is don't expect it to look better the first day. Get a 1 or 2 transitions where the horse goes over the pole or the jump nicely and into a canter and stop. If you do it for 1 or 2 minutes at the end of every session, you'll make a lot of progress. So there's a trot, trot, and a nice canter transition over the pole. So rather than just speeding up, she gives another pole there. It says, look at that nice canter. I want you guys to see that. So rather than speeding up, that pole gives her a target. Now, and I want to show you guys that part again, just because I can. So here, we trot the poles, ask for a canter, and we know when she usually falls out of it. It's a nice canter, and she usually loses her balance over here. So there was another pole, took her over it, and then she picked up that nice canter again, and then I stop and praise. So the idea is to, whether you use a jump or a small pole, is to get them to be able to do a nice transition over that pole. And then once they're really good at that, then you ask without the pole. You give them the same cues with right where the pole was, take the pole away, but ask for the transition in the same spot. If you get it, stop and praise, get off the horse, put the horse away. Your horse will do better the next day, I promise. Let's see. Cindy says, do you have advice on controlling the speed of the canter, keeping them in a controlled, nice, slow canter? So it's a good question, Cindy. You just told me, I think it was you canter up the hill on the trail, and you don't usually do it in the pasture because you don't work on it. So, okay, pardon me for saying this, but it sounds like you don't work on the canter. And so there's no reason to expect your horse to give you a nice, slow canter. You haven't done any training and balance. Cantering uphill is not the same as cantering on the flat. Practice these transitions over a pole. Sounds like she already knows how to canter, so that's a great first step. But what you need to do is practice these transitions. Get 1 or 2 strides, slow down, and walk. What this does, not only does it help you have good transitions and good canter, but it helps the horses realize that we're not cantering to get somewhere. We're not cantering just for speed. We're cantering and then we stop and we walk. I can't tell you how much of a difference that makes the horse to help them settle down and slow themselves down. Now, there's more, and I'm going to tell you what else you can do, but it is so much better now that when you stop the horse, instead of just cantering in circles and circles and circles, or even cantering up a hill or down a trail, if you canter and stop, your horse is like, well, this is no big deal. So start with that. Next, to get a slow canter, you need to be able to ride a fast canter. What you want to do is push your horse into a controlled fast canter and then slow down a tiny bit. When they slow down a little bit, stop and praise. Ask for a canter, push for a faster canter, slow down just a little bit, and then stop and praise. What we're doing is practicing speed control, practicing training. There is no trick to get a slow canter other than training your horse to have speed control and balance. Will says, love the video, love to canter, never taught a gaited horse to canter. It's very fun, and this, like I said, this technique can be used with any breed of horse. Amanda says, what causes corner cutting and a too fast canter? Well, I just touched on that a little bit, Amanda, but a lot of times it's lack of balance. Your horse hasn't had to balance the canter on a circle, on a bend with the rider, and that's a lot of strength training. You need to know how to get your horse to lift that shoulder up and move over, and that's not just like a simple exercise. She says, my girl is DNA tested as gaited, but she has a horrible pace. Well, anytime a horse is pacey, it means they can gait. So that's the good news. So I learned she has a divine trot and a lovely canter. She's natural. That sounds so wonderful. I love riding a good trot and a nice canter. And you can totally ignore the gait, or you can now spend some time training it because it sounds like you have a pace and a trot. And I guarantee you, in the middle is that smooth gait. Linda says, what about age? I have this mare's twin, but she's 14 now. 14 is no problem. Train the horse to canter. I get horses of all ages in my clinics, and we teach them to canter. So age is not a factor as long as they're strong enough to do it. Linda says, I like to start on the ground. And that's nothing wrong with starting on the ground. Here's the problem. A lot of people start on the ground and they use circles that are too small. And then they push the horse to canter and the head goes up and the nose goes out and they're not balanced. You need to have your circle big enough for them to actually have a good canter and allow them to have speed and stop and praise for a low head, stop and praise for a good canter departure. You can do the same exercise with the ground pull or a small jump on the lunge line, and you can get a good transition rather than pushing them faster and faster around that circle and having to chase them. It's a really fun way to teach them to go into canter, like a little jump. All right, so I'm going to recap. Let me know if you have any other questions because we're closing this up here a little bit. So a lot of people are like, why do you teach it that way? And I'm kind of sick of explaining why this actually works. And I say I'm kind of sick. I mean, what I'm tired of people questioning, like, why do you do that? Like, I just explained why, and they still ask. So, you do not have to follow these techniques. They are available for anybody that wants them on any horse, and I've heard excellent reviews and had excellent success with this. If you have another way, that's not a problem. You got it, go for it. Here's reasons to ask the horse to only canter from the walk and to do it over a small jump. It helps keep the rider more balanced. However, as a rider, if your saddle has a horn, make sure you put one hand on the horn right before you go over the jump. If you don't have a horn, that's even better. Make sure you're leaning forward. If you're unsure about your balance, feel free to bridge your hands and put them and the reins on the horse's neck as you go over the jump. This also prevents you from pulling on the reins as you go over, which is super important that you don't jerk back. Another reason to do this, rather than push the horse faster and faster, is the horse will get off balance and will usually throw every kind of gait at you. Walk, trot, pace, gait, and bounces you up and is very uncomfortable. And then the horse is off balance when he tries to canter. If you just try the faster and faster method, the horse just goes faster and faster, which can actually scare not only the rider, but also the horse as well. And if you are always asking, take it from someone who has been there, done that with a horse. If you have a horse and you want a fast gait, if you always ask for the canter from that fast gait, the horse will, instead of holding that fast gait, will get lazy and choose to canter instead of holding a faster gait. By letting the horse go faster or letting it be pacey when you ask for the canter, you end up with a bumpier transition and not something that looks smooth and nice. Again, make sure you lean forward and don't lean back when you go over the jump. Okay, let me see if there's any questions. Cynthia says, thanks for the information. This is so my young horse. She's very pacey and won't stay in the canter. I'm so looking forward to trying this once the snow goes away. Yep, stay safe. Cantering in the snow is also good. It helps them pick up their feet. Patty says, am I coming to Virginia soon? I am coming there tomorrow. I am flying to Virginia for a clinic tomorrow. So, yes. PJ says, hey, from Michigan, my Missouri Foxtrotter canters when asked. Great. Amanda says, can I recommend exercises or videos on how to build strength for the canter on the offside? I don't have any videos on lateral work. Look up videos on how to do leg yields and do those at the walk, gait, and canter and build trot. I can't remember if your horse already knows how to trot. You can correct him if I'm wrong. If your horse already knows how to trot, ask for that transition from a trot and do a lot of trotting with head down and a lot of leg yields. Janet says, great session. Thank you. You're very welcome. Stephanie says, I have a Tennessee walking horse mule that I haven't cantered in years due to the bunny buck. So I'm looking forward to working with him with this info. Thank you. You're welcome. Pamela says, love this. Great job explaining. Nancy says, it works for me to kiss for canter and cluck for gait. That's actually what I usually do. My cue for gait is, and my cue for canter is, and I usually say canter because that's some people's cue. I usually say canter and give a kiss. Okay, so I want to address another topic here that was recently asked about. Someone asked, what about the rocking chair Tennessee walking horse canter that you see in the show ring? It's artificial. It's fake. Horses do not canter that way in the pasture without shoes or pads or training. I never train that. I will never train a Tennessee walking horse to lift up on that front end and throw that head up every stride. It is totally fake and false. If you do it, fine, ignore me. I'm telling you, I will never personally train it. Okay, there we go. Got that out of the way. I don't want to have to talk about that again. Okay. I like Linda says, challenges on, thanks. Yes, I would love to. Please, video it. Video before and after. Video your training sessions. Post it. Share with me. I would love to show people the videos you guys do. Okay, really quickly, now that we've got more people on, I just released a new product. I'm only going to mention it. Do not feel like you have to buy it. So this new product is about 3 months ago, I painted some watercolor horses, and everybody was like, you need note cards of this. So you know what? I made note cards. So here they are. The colors are a little bit bad here. So we have the fire horse here, note card, and I'm actually going to go ahead and change this so you can see. So, okay, here we go. This is the fire horse. It's a note card. Opens up this way. Includes the Galaxy horse, which everybody really liked, the purple Galaxy horse. And then the water horse, which I really like. It's one of my favorites. I'm really happy how that came out. So those are now available on my website, ivyshorses.com, and the link is in the description for these. And there's the 3 designs. So the set includes 9 cards, 3 of each design, and it's $23.99 for these. And so if you buy those, it supports me and supports my watercolors, and I'll do more. But if you don't want to buy them, that's okay. So again, it's a set of 9 for $23.99. Okay. So feel free to support me by buying those. There's also a link for the private training group. Sandra says she came in late. Is it okay to allow the trot? I wondered for so long if it wrecks the gait. Very briefly, Sandra, it does not wreck the gait if you allow the trot, especially if your horse already knows how to gait. And I have a lot of videos on that. If you're on this, Ivy's Glide Gait, just search trot on the search bar for the page, and quite a few videos will come up, and I do talk about it. So go back and watch this video. Again, this video will be available for you as soon as we finish. Let me know if there's any questions before I finish up. We've had a lot of great comments and questions, answering probably a lot of problems people are going through. Eventually, I'll do a more in-depth video, and I'll also be able to do more of how to get the correct lead and how to do cues. Right now, I just want to help you guys get started getting the canter. So, again, like I said, I'm heading to Virginia this weekend. I'll take any suggestions for videos next week. Next week, watch for a video from me. I want to show you my riding from 10 or 15 years ago, so you can see the before and after. Stephanie, does the $23.99 include shipping? No, there's a small fee for shipping, so shipping is not included. So these are the watercolors that I painted. And go ahead and take a look at the link is in the description. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun. I always love interacting with you guys. I love that you comment. It always makes the videos more fun. Otherwise, it's just me talking to the camera. But when I get to answer questions, it feels like I'm actually talking to people out there. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great weekend. And yes, we do include PayPal. PayPal, you can get that. So, guys, have a great weekend. You got this.